The crystal wine glasses clinked together as my sister Olivia raised her hand, instantly capturing everyone's attention, like she always did. "Big news, everyone," she announced, flashing her perfect smile as she looked around the polished mahogany dining table in our parents' dining room. "I just got called for an interview at Sterling Enterprises." My mother gasped, nearly dropping her fork. Sterling Enterprises? The top tech company in the city. Olivia nodded proudly, tossing her perfectly styled hair. "The very one. And not just any role. They're considering me for the senior marketing director position. They reached out to me directly." Of course, they had. Things always seemed to fall right into Olivia's lap. Straight A's, without effort. Dream jobs, without applying. Every achievement handed to her was like a gift our parents had never stopped admiring. I stayed quiet, pushing food around on my plate, hoping to disappear. But in this family, I was never invisible for long, especially when they needed someone to measure Olivia's greatness against. "Isn't that wonderful?" My mother beamed. "Now that's a real career path." Then she turned to me, her smile losing its warmth. "Carol, maybe you should ask Olivia for advice. She could help you find something more serious." She meant better than my consulting business, the one they all considered nothing more than fancy freelancing. Never mind that I'd built it from scratch. To them, being your boss wasn't as impressive as having one. "I'm doing fine, Mom," I replied softly. Olivia let out a laugh. "Oh, come on. Do you still call that a job? When are you going to admit your little side hustle isn't a real career?" My father placed his glass down. "Olivia's got a point. You're 33, Carol. It's time to start thinking seriously about your future." I gripped my fork tighter, thinking about the deals I'd closed just last week. The contracts waiting for me back at home. The empire I had built, quietly, steadily, while they were all too busy doubting me. "My business is doing well," I began, but Olivia interrupted. "Business? Please, you work from your apartment and probably scrape by every month. Meanwhile, I'm about to be a senior director at Sterling Enterprises." She turned to our parents with a grin. "Did I mention the salary? $310,000 base, plus bonuses." My mother looked like she might faint. My father lit up with pride. I couldn't help but think about my company's last quarterly earnings, numbers they'd never see coming. "When's the interview?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "Monday morning," Olivia replied smugly. "But it's pretty much a formality. The CEO wants to meet me personally." I smiled to myself, remembering the stack of applications on my desk. One of them was Olivia's, sent by HR with a note. Another overly confident candidate. "Your call, boss." "Well, good luck," I said, standing up. "I should head out. I have an early meeting tomorrow." Olivia smirked. "What? Someone finally buying something from you?" My mother sighed. "When are you going to grow out of this phase? Your father could have gotten you a proper job years ago." I thought about the nameplate on my office door. The one that reads Carol Walker, CEO, Sterling Enterprises. The same company Olivia believed she was about to join. "You're right, Mom," I said, picking up my things. Maybe it is time for a change. They probably thought I was finally giving in. They had no idea. As I drove back to my penthouse, not that they knew I could afford one, I thought about all the times they'd brushed me aside. All the doubts, all the pressure. It only made me stronger. It made me build something bigger, and tomorrow, when Olivia walks into that interview, she'll finally see the truth. They had no idea. Not even close. It all began 11 years ago, right after I finished my MBA. Back then, Olivia was still the family's golden child, gliding up the corporate ladder with her natural charm, while I quietly buried myself in market research and business strategy. When I told them I was starting my consulting firm, they laughed. When I signed my first big client, they said it was just beginner's luck, and when I started rescuing struggling businesses and turning them into success stories, they didn't even notice. 6 years ago, I made my biggest move yet. I bought Sterling Enterprises, yes, Sterling Enterprises, using a web of shell companies and investors. No one knew I was behind it. The former CEO was ready to retire, and I had been planning it for years. To keep things quiet, I changed my professional name to Carol Walker, my mom's maiden name. I knew my family paid so little attention to business news, they'd never connect the dots. While Olivia was busy collecting small promotions, I was rebuilding one of the city's biggest tech companies from the ground up. Sterling became stronger than ever, profitable, respected, a major player in the tech world. And still, my family remained clueless, too busy applauding Olivia's every step to notice that the daughter they once dismissed was now one of the most powerful CEOs in the city. As I pulled into the garage of my high-rise building, my phone buzzed. A message from Olivia. You should visit the Sterling office sometime. I'll give you a tour after I get the job. It's a real company, something you should see. I smiled, picturing my sleek corner office on the top floor, the one with a view of the whole city. The same office Olivia thought she was applying to work near. Tomorrow was going to be fun. Later that evening, I looked over her resume again. On paper, it looked solid. Great education, a steady climb through the ranks, and glowing references. But I had done my homework. I knew about the credit she'd stolen from teammates, the shortcuts she took, the way she threw others under the bus to look good. Olivia was always great at pretending. But tomorrow, she'd learned that a polished image isn't enough. Another buzz, this time from my mother. Sweetheart, I know seeing Olivia do well must be hard. Why don't you let your father make a few calls? It's not too late to start a real career. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked into my home office. The walls were covered with framed business magazine covers. Headlines that read, "The Hidden Genius Behind Sterling's Rise, Tech's Silent Queen, Carol Walker, meet the CEO who changed everything." The same daughter they said would never make it. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and typed an email to HR. Please schedule Ms. Olivia Taylor's interview in my office at 10 a.m. sharp. Have her wait in the lobby for at least 40 minutes before bringing her up. Maybe it was petty, but after a lifetime of hearing her talk down to me, I felt I'd earned that tiny moment of satisfaction. The rest of the evening was like any other Sunday. Reviewing reports, planning acquisitions, building the future. But this Sunday felt different. As I got ready for bed, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The nervous girl they once knew was gone. Now I wore confidence like a tailored suit. My posture said power. My eyes showed focus. I had grown into someone they couldn't even imagine. Tomorrow, they'd finally see me for who I am, and I couldn't wait for the curtain to rise. Monday morning had never felt so good. I stood in my private elevator as it rose smoothly toward the top floor of Sterling Enterprises. Through the glass walls, the city below was just starting to wake up. My reflection in the glass was calm and confident, my Armani suits flawless, heels clicking with purpose as I stepped onto the marble floor. "Good morning, Miss Walker," my executive assistant, Megan, greeted me with a knowing smile. "Your 10 a.m. interview is already here. She's been waiting in the lobby for 18 minutes. Very insistent," says the CEO, personally asked to meet her. I checked the time. 9:30 a.m. I smiled. Let her wait another 13 minutes. Megan raised an eyebrow, amused. She's already asked for coffee 4 times, dropped the names of executives she claims to know, and told the receptionist her sister is basically jobless. I set my briefcase on the desk, completely unfazed. Perfect. Has she noticed the magazine covers? Not a single one, Megan replied, arranging the folders on my desk. Too busy talking about her marketing brilliance to look around. That was so typical of Olivia. Always focused on selling herself, never paying attention to what actually mattered. If she had looked, she would have seen her biggest clue hanging right above the reception desk, my photo, featured on the cover of a dozen business magazines. All of them praised Sterling's turnaround under my leadership. But she missed it, just like she always had. She has some decent achievements on her resume, Megan added. I fact-checked them. Half are exaggerated, a third are flat-out lies, and the rest were group projects she took full credit for. I nodded. No surprise there. Just like high school. Remember the science fair? The project I built while she was off at cheerleading practice. Megan chuckled. The very same. I sat behind my desk and adjusted my nameplate, making sure it caught the light just right. Send her up at exactly 10 o'clock, and Megan, make sure security is recording the lobby and elevator. I want to keep this moment. At precisely 10 a.m., my phone buzzed. Miss Taylor is here, Megan said over the intercom. Send her in. The door opened, and Olivia walked in like she already owned the place. Her suit was expensive, but a little too loud. Her confidence was just a step away from arrogance. Then she saw me. The color drained from her face as she stopped cold in the doorway. Carol, she gasped. What are you doing here? Good morning, Olivia, I said with a polite smile. Please have a seat. We have a lot to discuss about your application for the senior marketing director position. She didn't move. Her mouth opened, then closed again, completely stunned. I'm supposed to meet with the CEO, she said weakly. Carol Walker. I gestured to the nameplate on my desk. That's me. Carol Walker, formerly Carol Taylor. Though I'm not surprised you didn't make the connection. You never really paid attention to anything I did you? Olivia sank into the chair, her usual polished exterior beginning to crack. This isn't possible, she whispered. You're just a consultant. You work from your apartment. Actually, I said, leaning back in my chair, savoring the moment, I own this building. And several others. Sterling Enterprises has been my company for the last 6 years. I picked up her resume and flipped through it. Now, let's talk about these accomplishments you listed. I have some questions. Her voice shook. You can't be serious. You're nobody. I met her eyes, cool and steady. That's what you all thought, didn't you? Poor Carol. Just doing some silly consulting work. Couldn't even land a real job. My tone was still calm and professional. Tell me, Olivia, did you ever ask what kind of consulting I actually did? What companies have I worked with? What deals have I closed? She didn't answer. No, you didn't, I said flatly. None of you did. You were too busy dismissing me, mocking my choices, patting yourselves on the back for your mediocrity. Olivia sat silently, her confidence shattered, the reality finally setting in. For the first time in years, I was no longer the invisible one. Now I was the one in charge. And Olivia had no choice but to see me for the very first time. I opened the folder in front of me and looked directly at Olivia. Let's talk about this claim. You said you increased your department's revenue by 300% last year. That's accurate, she said quickly, but I saw the panic flicker in her eyes. Interesting, I replied, pulling out another report. Because I have your company's official annual summary right here. It shows a 42% increase in total. And according to your team members, most of that came from a campaign your junior staff created. The same one you originally rejected, but later took credit for when it succeeded. Olivia's face went from pale to deep red. You've been digging into my work? I investigate every senior candidate thoroughly, I said, my tone steady. We hold very high standards here at Sterling. We care about real accomplishments, not just flashy claims. Just then, my phone buzzed. Megan's voice came through the speaker. Ms. Walker, your parents just arrived in the lobby. They're asking to see you. Quite insistent. Of course, they were. Olivia had probably texted them the moment she realized what was happening. Send them up, I said calmly. Sounds like it's time for a family meeting. Olivia shifted in her chair, clearly uncomfortable. Carol, about last night, the things I said. Save it. I cut her off. I'm not interested in apologies born from fear. I spent years hearing you talk down to me and act like I was nothing. Now you get to sit there and find out who your so-called unsuccessful sister really is. The door flew open. My parents burst in, their faces tight with confusion and anger. Carol, my mother cried. What is the meaning of this? Why are you sitting in the CEO's office? Hello, Mother, I said coolly. I was just reviewing Olivia's job application. Want to join us? We were having a conversation about honesty and real professional success. My father's face turned red. That's enough. Stop this ridiculous act. You're embarrassing yourself and your sister. I rose from my chair, slowly, letting the room feel the power shift. No, Dad. For once, you're going to listen to me. I pressed a button on my desk. The glass wall behind me turned into a large screen, displaying Sterling's financial growth, year by year, under my leadership. "Welcome to my company," I said. "The one you brag about to your friends at the country club. The one Olivia has been dying to join. The one making headlines while you were too busy doubting me to notice." They stared silently at the screen, charts, numbers, headlines from major magazines. Years of progress. Billions in acquisitions. My face is on the covers of Forbes, Fortune, and Business Weekly. My mother's voice broke. "This is all yours?" "Every bit of it," I said as I walked around the desk. "That consulting business you mocked? That was just the beginning." I met their stunned faces with calm pride. While Olivia was showing off her mid-level titles, I was buying companies and building something real. While you were worried, I didn't have a real job. I was building an empire. My father finally found his voice. "But why didn't you tell us? Why keep all of this a secret?" I let out a quiet laugh, sharp and honest. "Because you never asked. You never cared. You decided who I was a long time ago. And no matter what I achieved, it was never going to be enough for you. So I stopped trying to prove anything and just went out and did it." The silence that followed was thick. For the first time, they weren't sure what to say, and I wasn't done yet. Now, they were going to learn what real success looked like, and it was just getting started. But there was no laughter behind my words. Not like the times I tried to tell them about signing my first major client, or the day I successfully turned around a failing company. Every time I achieved something, they brushed it off. It didn't count because it didn't fit their narrow view of success. Olivia shifted in her seat, clearly uncomfortable. "Carol, if we had known..." "That's exactly the problem," I said, cutting her off. "You only care now because of what I've built, not because of who I am. The power, the money, that's what matters to you. Not the hard work, not the journey, not the person behind it all." I pressed a button on my desk. The large screen behind me flickered to life, and footage from last night's dinner played. Olivia's voice echoed through the room. "Can't even get a real job." "Stop," Olivia whispered, her face turning red. "We get it. Do you?" I looked her straight in the eyes. "Because I've watched you build your career by exaggerating your role, stealing credit, and stepping over others. I've spoken to your old coworkers, your references. I know exactly how you climbed the ladder." My mother stood up, smoothing the front of her dress nervously. "Surely, we can talk this through. We're family, after all." "Family?" I picked up Olivia's resume, holding it like evidence. Like when Olivia took credit for my science fair project in high school. Or when she told her college friends, I was a washed-up failure because I started my own business instead of chasing a corporate title. "I was young," Olivia said weakly. "We all make mistakes." "Yes," I nodded. "And now we live with them." Right on cue, Megan stepped into the room, holding a thick folder. "The background investigation you requested, Ms. Walker." "Thank you," I said, flipping through the contents. Faked accomplishments. Stolen campaigns. Multiple workplace bullying complaints. I looked up. "Did you think none of this would come out in our screening process?" Olivia sat frozen, her face draining of color. "Those accusations were never proven, because Dad's lawyers buried them," I finished. "But Sterling takes corporate integrity very seriously. Every executive is vetted thoroughly." My father stepped forward, switching into negotiation mode. "Now, Carol, surely this is something we can discuss privately. As a family." "You lost that privilege last night," I said quietly. "When you sat there and watched Olivia tear me down. When you told me I needed help finding a real job. When you made it clear, again, that I would never be good enough in your eyes." I pressed another button. The door opened, and my chief legal officer, Arthur Wright, walked in. "Arthur," I said, "would you kindly explain the company policy regarding false information on executive applications?" Arthur adjusted his glasses. "Submitting falsified credentials at this level is grounds for immediate disqualification. Depending on the details, it could also lead to legal consequences, especially if there's evidence of defamation or intellectual property theft." Olivia's voice cracked. You wouldn't. You can't. Can't what? I asked. Protect my company from someone with a known history of dishonesty? Uphold our values? Or are you suggesting I should look the other way because we're related? Carol, please, my mother begged, her voice shaking. Think about what this will do to our family's name. I met her eyes. Like you thought about mine? All those years you let Olivia tear me down with snide remarks and fake smiles, while you stood by and did nothing. I turned back to my desk. Olivia's application is rejected, and I'm forwarding the results of this investigation to her current employer. They deserve to know who they've hired to represent their brand. Olivia broke down. But these weren't the dramatic tears she used to get sympathy. These were real. The tears of someone who'd finally run out of ways to lie her way out. And then I turned to my parents. You should take a long, hard look at how you've treated your daughters. You cheered for the one who lied. And you dismissed the one who built everything on her own, honestly. The room went quiet. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. For the first time, they saw me, and this time, I wasn't going to let them look away. The moment I spoke, my father's face clouded over. So, you're enjoying this, aren't you? Humiliating your own family? No, Dad. I replied calmly. I'm not enjoying this at all. I'm doing what you should have done a long time ago, holding people accountable for their actions. I walked over to the window, gazing out at the city, a city where I now owned a major stake. You know what hurts the most? If any of you had taken a genuine interest in what I was doing, even for a second, you would have seen it coming. My name has been in the business news for years. My full name. But all of you were so sure I'd fail. You never even noticed my success. Turning back to face them, I stood tall. I have a board meeting to prepare for. Arthur will show you out. Olivia, you'll receive the official outcome in writing. I suggest you take this as a chance to think about your actions. My mother, Carol, tried one last time. We can still fix this, we're family. I sat down behind my desk, picking up a report. We're related, yes. But being a family takes more than just blood. It takes respect, support, and love. And none of you gave me any of that. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a company to run. They left in silence. Olivia's tears were still falling, and my parents' pride had been shattered. As the door closed, Megan walked in with a coffee. Are you okay? She asked gently. I looked at the photo in my drawer, not of my parents, not of Olivia, but of my grandfather. He was the only one who believed in me from the beginning. You know what, Megan? I think I am. For the first time in a long while, I really am. Over the next few months, everything changed. Olivia's employers started digging into her background, eventually leading to her resignation. My parents stopped being seen at social events. Their reputation faded once people found out they had rejected their accomplished daughter while praising the dishonest one. Meanwhile, I stayed focused. I kept growing Sterling, making it stronger, smarter, better. The business world couldn't stop talking when the story broke about the hidden CEO who built an empire while her family looked the other way. It became a story about quiet strength outlasting empty noise. 5 months later, I got a letter from Olivia. Not an email, not a message, a handwritten letter. She apologized. She told me that, for the first time, she had to start from the bottom, without help or shortcuts. And only then did she begin to understand what real success meant. It took longer for my parents to come around. But eventually, my mother also sent a letter. She admitted their mistakes and asked if she could get to know me, not the daughter they once dismissed, but the woman I had become. I keep both letters in my desk drawer, right next to my grandfather's photo. Not because I've fully forgiven them, but because they remind me of something important. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Exactly 1 year after that unforgettable interview, I sat in my office reviewing our quarterly performance. Megan entered with the latest issue of a top business magazine. On the cover, Sterling CEO Carol Walker, The Power of Quiet Success. The article didn't talk about family drama or Olivia's failed interview. It focused on the work, the innovations, the changes we made, the legacy we were building. That's what real success looks like. Not boasting at family gatherings. Not chasing applause. but creating something meaningful, something that lasts. They once called me worthless at the dinner table. Now I was their boss, their example, their reality check, and that meant more than any revenge ever could.